let's get into main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Armond Smithe, who writes, "Hey, John, as we get into the new year, it's looking more and more like there will indeed be an Oscars to quote unquote celebrate the films of 2020. I know you've had your reservations about that before, especially with them talking about having a live audience for it. But now that we're in the new year, I was wondering if maybe you've changed your position on it. I know I love the Oscars and kind of hope they still have them. Wouldn't you still be excited for the awards if they move ahead? Thank you, from a fan since 2012. Well, thank you so much for that, Armand. I really appreciate that, man. And yeah, listen, one of the topics of conversation we've clearly had around here a lot lately has been regarding the whole issue of the Academy Awards. And the bigger question, should they even be doing an Academy Awards? Is an Academy Awards really even something they should do this year? The reality is that 2020, like we said off the beginning of the show, has been a complete crap show, right? So many of the movies that were supposed to come out this year never even got out. Some of the movies that did get to come out did not get to come out the way they wanted to. The culture has been understandably incredibly distracted from the movies. There have been bigger, more important things going on in the world. The year of 2020, despite the fact that there have been absolutely some fantastic movies this year, no doubt, there have been some incredible movies this year. The reality is, this is a lost year. 2020 is essentially a lost year. Yes, there were some great ones, but overall, we did not get what you would call a standard year for the Academy Awards. That much is clear. So there are two separate issues here when it comes to the Oscars that Armand brings up. Number one, the Oscars has talked about we're going to do a live in-person Oscars, which is just asinine to talk about. Now, granted, the Oscars don't happen until April. I get it, but to talk about having a live audience at an event while we're in the midst of massive spikes in a pandemic is tone deaf at best, asinine at worst. I mean, I honestly don't know what goes on. And I love the Academy. I love the Oscars, but sometimes I don't know what the flippin' F they're drinking over there. To talk about we're going to have a live audience at Oscars. You know what? Maybe it'll be possible in April to have a live audience. Maybe. Talk about that later. Maybe not in the midst when over 100,000 Americans are in hospital beds right now. Maybe not in the midst of the biggest spikes in the pandemic we've ever had. Maybe that's not the time to demonstrate how out of touch you are by talking about having a live audience at your Oscars. If the circumstance warrant, talk about it later. Anyway, so there's that. There was that whole thing. But then there's the bigger question about should they even have an Oscars at all? And my position through all the changes, and now we're in a new year, has my position changed at all? Actually, no. I am more convinced than ever that they should not have an Oscars this year. And there's a couple of very important reasons why. And I'm sure many of you will disagree, and that's cool. But I'm just going to tell you, as the guy who the Oscars is my second favorite day of the year besides Christmas. Even more important than my own birthday, even more important than, just making sure Anne's not here, my anniversary, is the Oscars. The Oscars is my second favorite day of the year. So I say this as a huge Oscars fan, right? Nobody's going to care about the Oscars this year, because nobody was thinking about the movies this year. Aside from the fact that this was such an odd year with so few films that actually got their shot, like to have somebody win an Oscar when the competition field was 70% smaller than what a normal year would have been means whenever you mention that Oscar winner, you got to put an asterisk beside it. You can't, like when every Oscar winner had to compete against an enormous number of other competitors, there is a certain prestige that goes with the Oscars. You have an Oscars representing a year where there was 70% less contenders, yet somebody still gets the Academy Award. to me, that lessens it. So you got two things. Number one, we're talking about a year where nobody was thinking about the movies. Number two, you have a much smaller field than normally. Some excellent films, yes, but a much smaller field. To me, that right away negates anything about any Oscar win this year. Why don't, and then it feels weird. It feels weird. Now there's nothing objective about this. This is just kind of a feeling I have, and feelings aren't worth much, but I'm just going to tell you what my feel. There's something that feels a little bit weird about having this big celebration around a year that was so completely awful for so many people. Again, there's nothing quantifiable to that. I'm just saying, it's just internally to me, it feels weird. Having this big, huge celebration of the year that was 2020 when so many horrible, terrible things happened in 2020. Again, that's just a nitpick. It's just my feeling. It doesn't really mean anything. Just something there. So John, some people might say, but John, what do you do then? What do you do with these great films that came out this year and deserve an opportunity to be recognized? In a horrible situation like this, there is no perfect answer. All right, I'll acknowledge that right now. There is no perfect answer. And my recommendation may not be the best recommendation. I acknowledge that. They may not be. But here's what I would want to suggest. I think not a perfect way, but the best way to deal with this situation is this. Have all the films that would have been eligible for this Oscars become also eligible, like just cancel this year's ceremony and move and say everybody, all the films that came out this year, you will also be qualified. You will qualify for next year's Oscars. Because I think personally, and again, you guys may disagree, and that's perfectly good if you do. But my personal thought is, I would rather have an Oscars competition and an Oscars ceremony where there is an overabundance of competition than having an Oscars ceremony and give out Oscars when there was underrepresentation for those Oscars, when there wasn't many competitors for that Oscar. And you know what I'll even say? I'll go so far as to say this. And I don't love this idea, but I will go so far as to say this. If you want to have the Oscars in 2022, then maybe even say, you know what, for this one year, for this one special year, every category will have 2 winners. So we will have Best Picture nominees, and we'll still have 10 nominees, but we are going to give co-awards to 2 films to recognize the fact. Again, that's not a perfect answer, but I think it's a better answer. Again, I just don't see many people caring about the Oscars this year because it was a year that nobody really thought about them. Underrepresentation, asterisks having to go besides the name, talking about having live audiences, which they may be able to do, but talk about that later. I don't know. All these things to me just, again, leave me in a place where I feel like it's a little tone deaf to have an Oscar ceremony for the year of 2020. I just think there's too many things that have gone into it. But again, I know I'm in the minority on that. I recognize, I had this discussion with Erin Cummings about 3 or 4 months ago. Erin Cummings was on the show with me, and she raised some really good points about why she feels they should do an Oscar ceremony this year. I wish my opinion has changed, but it has not. I still feel that way. Question is, guys, how do you feel about it? Do you think the Oscars should go ahead and happen this year? Do you think, just get it over with and let's move on to the next year? Maybe you feel like I do, that there's too many things that have just rotted it up. Just wait till the following year. Maybe you have a different idea somewhere in between. Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys.